Welcome back to the channel, Eagles fans. If you've been paying attention, you already know this season was a roller coaster from beginning to end. It wasn't just the games or the wins that made it feel wild. It was the moments that left you scratching your head. The times when the team looked like it was finally ready to reach a higher level and then, for some reason, just couldn't close the deal. And now that the season is over, there are still a few things burning in the fanbase that we need to talk about. First, there's the whole Jalen Hurts leadership debate that keeps getting thrown around like it's settled fact. Then there's Howie Roseman and the offensive coordinator situation, which honestly feels like a circus right now. And of course, the playoffs, because let's be real, we didn't just lose a game, we lost the entire season, and that sting is still fresh. I waited to make this video because I wanted to see how the playoffs would play out. I wanted to see if the Eagles could have actually made a run if everything had gone right. And then Sunday happened. Watching the 49ers win with 4 backups made me pause and think, hold on. What just happened? That team was far from full strength, yet they still managed to beat us. And here's the thing, the real issue wasn't the defense. People keep trying to downplay the defense like they didn't show up. They did. They forced turnovers, made big plays, and kept the game within reach. The problem was that we had no complementary football. Every time the Seahawks got the ball, they scored. They ran the ball well. They passed the ball well. And they had a coach who knew how to adjust and keep the offense moving. That's what happens when your offense can't sustain drives. And here's the truth nobody wants to admit out loud. When you keep going 3 and out, your defense is going to get worn down. It's not complicated. You can't ask a defense to play at a high level for the entire game when the offense keeps putting them right back on the field. That's why the Seahawks were able to beat the 49ers back end. It wasn't that the 49ers didn't show up. It was that they didn't have the pieces to keep up. Watching that unfold, I couldn't help but feel furious that we wasted a season where we had arguably the best roster in the NFC and one of the best setups in the league. We had the chance to make a serious run, and instead we fumbled it away. It wasn't just one mistake or one bad decision. It was a season full of missed opportunities, questionable coaching calls, and a lack of identity on offense when it mattered most. The defense gave everything they had. But you can't carry an entire season on your back, not when the offense is inconsistent and the coaching staff keeps repeating the same errors. So when people try to blame the fans or act like the defense didn't show up, that's not accurate. The defense showed up, the offense did not. And that responsibility lands squarely on the coaching staff. And now we're watching the head coaching interviews, and it's honestly starting to feel like a joke. Howie Roseman keeps saying he's interviewing a wide range of candidates, but the names being mentioned feel like a list of whoever is available, rather than who can actually fix this offense. It feels like he's just picking names out of a hat. We've heard about Brian Daboll, and I get it, he has a resume. He's done impressive things in Buffalo, and he's shown he can run an offense. But the real question is he a leader? Because you can be a brilliant defensive mind and still not have the type of leadership that fits this locker room. And let's not forget that Daboll has history with Jalen Hurts. He's the coach who benched him at Alabama, and that kind of background can be tricky. It could be a positive because it means he knows what Hurts is capable of and how to get the best out of him. But it could also bring tension you don't want in a situation where the quarterback needs stability and confidence. If Hurts doesn't want him here, that's a problem. Because the head coach needs to be a collective decision. You can't bring in someone the quarterback is uncomfortable with and expect everything to magically work out. Then you look at other names like Bobby Slowick from Miami, and that one actually feels promising. He's a low-key option. But he's shown he can create explosive offense and get the most out of a young quarterback. If you can't land the big name, this is the kind of hire that makes sense. He's young, he's sharp, and he's clearly learning from a coach who has built a dynamic offense in Miami. The risk is that if he does well here, he won't stay long. That's the danger. He could be gone after a year or two, and we're back to square one. But at least it would be progress. And then there's the one name that should be the obvious choice, Mike McDaniel. This is the guy who has proven he can build an elite offense, who understands how to design plays and manage an attack that keeps defenses guessing. The way he talks about the game, it's like he's a human computer. He understands concepts and schemes at a level most coaches don't even reach. If the Eagles want to truly be elite, they need someone who can take this offense to another level. Nick Sirianni has had success But there's no denying that the offense has stalled when it mattered most, and if we're being honest, it's time for a change. The time is now. Now let's shift the conversation to the narrative that's been floating around lately. Jalen Hurts being labeled as a bad leader. You've probably seen the headlines. And you've probably seen takes from people who clearly don't have any real insight into what's happening inside the locker room. There was that survey that supposedly painted Hurts as someone who is not respected, not liked, and not a leader, but when you look at the actual facts, you see something different. You see that he was ranked among the top leaders in the Eagles locker room. That alone blows the whole thing up. It's clickbait, it's noise. And it's the kind of narrative that gets pushed when people want to stir the pot. Because if you actually watch how the season went, you see a guy who stepped up when the coaching staff didn't have answers. You see a guy who became more vocal when the team needed direction. And you see a guy who didn't let personal issues with teammates define the season. Even when there was tension with A.J. Brown, Hurts handled it like a leader. He didn't let it fester. He addressed it. He moved on, and they ended the season on a better note. That's what leadership looks like. It's not always about being the loudest guy in the room. Sometimes it's about being the one who keeps the team together when everything is falling apart. And that's the part that really stands out to me, because this year, the Eagles didn't just lose. They lost because of a lack of cohesion on offense, because of poor decision-making, and because the coaching staff couldn't get the unit moving when it mattered most. But Hurts, he showed up. He showed up as a leader. He showed up as a competitor. And he showed up as the guy who was willing to take responsibility, even when things got messy. Now, if you're watching all this unfold, you've got to ask yourself what the Eagles are really doing with this offseason, because right now, it feels like we're in a weird limbo. We have a quarterback who has proven, who has shown he can win big games, and who has grown into a leader. But then you look at the way the team ended this season, and you see a franchise that seems to be questioning everything, and that's the problem. If you're going to build a championship team, you need consistency, you need a plan, you need a direction. And right now, it feels like we're just throwing ideas at the wall and seeing what sticks. The first thing that needs to be addressed is the coaching situation. If you're going to keep Nick Sirianni, then you need to give him a staff that can actually win in the playoffs. You can't keep running the same offense with the same issues and expect a different result. It's not how it works. The Eagles were supposed to be built for this. We had the weapons, we had the defense, we had the talent, but the offense, especially in the biggest moments, looked lost. And that's why the playoff loss was so painful, because it wasn't just that we lost, it was how we lost. It was like watching a team that had all the tools but didn't know how to use them when the pressure was on, and that's why the offensive coordinator search is so important. Because you can't keep hoping that the same system that got you this far will suddenly start working in the playoffs. It doesn't happen like that. You need someone who can adjust, someone who can read defenses and change the game plan on the fly, someone who can put the quarterback in the best position to succeed. And if that's not happening, then you need to change the architecture of the offense. That's where the names come in. You've got guys like Brian Daboll, who clearly knows how to run an offense, but you've also got the question of leadership and fit. You've got guys like Bobby Slowick, who are young and innovative and could bring a fresh approach. And then you've got the dream option, Mike McDaniel, who is the kind of offensive mind that can take this team to another level. And the reality is that if the Eagles want to be serious about competing, they need to stop playing games and go after the best option. Because the NFC is not going to get easier. Teams are getting better, quarterbacks are getting better, and if you're not evolving, you're falling behind. Now, let's talk about the bigger picture. Because what happened this season wasn't just a loss on the field, it was a loss in momentum. The Eagles had a chance to establish themselves as the top team in the NFC for years. We had a window where everything was aligned, but instead of capitalizing on it, we let it slip away. And that's why the frustration is so real. It's not that we're disappointed because we lost. It's that we lost the opportunity to cement ourselves as a dynasty-level team. We had the chance, and we let it slip. And then you look at the other teams in the league and you see how fragile success can be. The Rams, for example, might have one of the easiest paths to the Super Bowl. They've got a quarterback situation that is questionable, but they've got a roster that's built to win. If they make it to the Super Bowl, they'll be playing a team that is either the Broncos with a backup quarterback or the Patriots, a team that still feels like it's trying to figure out its identity. That's not a scary matchup. Not when you consider the talent we have. That's why it's so frustrating. Because it's like we were supposed to be the ones in that position, and that brings us back to the leadership question. Because the narrative that Hurts is a bad leader is not just wrong, it's disrespectful. It's disrespectful to a guy who has carried this team and who has grown every single year. It's disrespectful to the locker room that has publicly praised him, and it's disrespectful to the fans who know what they've seen on the field. You can't just throw out a narrative like that and expect people to accept it without question. You have to look at the evidence, and the evidence is clear. Jalen Hurts is a leader. He's the kind of leader that steps up when the team needs it most. He's the kind of leader that doesn't let personal issues destroy the team. And he's the kind of leader that has earned the respect of his teammates. Now, I'm not saying he's perfect. Nobody is. But what I am saying is that he deserves better than to be used as a scapegoat for a season. That was lost because of coaching and scheme issues. Because if you want to blame someone, blame the system, blame the play calling, blame the lack of consistency. Blame the fact that we never really found a rhythm in the biggest games. Those are the real issues. And those are the issues that need to be addressed this offseason. Because if the Eagles want to come back stronger, they need to make bold decisions. They need to stop being timid. They need to stop making the same mistakes and expecting a different result. They need to be willing to bring in a coach who can elevate the offense. They need to be willing to give Jalen Hurts the support he needs to succeed. And they need to be willing to build a team that can win when the lights are the brightest. And that's the question going forward. Are the Eagles going to do what it takes? Or are we going to keep seeing the same cycle repeat? Because right now, the NFC is wide open. There are opportunities. There are matchups. There are teams that are still figuring things out. But the window for the Eagles to be elite is not going to stay open forever. If we don't make the right moves, if we don't fix the offense, if we don't get the right coach, then we're going to look back on this season as the one we wasted. And that's not a feeling any Eagles fan wants to live with. So as the offseason continues, keep watching, keep paying attention. Because the decisions that get made now are going to define this team for the next few years. And if the Eagles want to be serious contenders, they need to stop making excuses and start making moves. Because the time is now and the clock is ticking. FlyEaglesFly News family, smash subscribe and hit like. Your support keeps the freshest Philadelphia Eagles updates flying in. Drop your take in the comments and let's talk birds. Whispers are growing loud around the league that a familiar face could be on his way back to where his prime truly flourished. Inside league circles, the Philadelphia Eagles are believed to be exploring the possibility of bringing Darius Slay back home, a move that would blend nostalgia, leadership, and immediate impact in the secondary. Slay's name still carries weight in the Eagles' locker room and among the fan base. During his previous stint in Philadelphia, he was more than just a shutdown corner. He became a tone setter, a veteran voice who helped shape a defensive identity built on aggression and confidence. Even after his departure, many within the organization reportedly kept close tabs on his performances, viewing him as a player whose value goes beyond interceptions and pass breakups. Sources suggest the Eagles' front office has been quietly assessing its defensive backfield and considering how a seasoned presence could stabilize key moments in high-pressure situations, while younger corners bring speed and upside. The appeal of Slay lies in his experience reading quarterbacks, anticipating routes, and mentoring emerging talent in a league where defensive communication often determines outcomes. His return could offer an intangible edge that doesn't show up on stat sheets. Financial details remain speculative, and no formal talks have been confirmed. Still, the idea of Slay finishing a chapter in Midnight Green has sparked conversations across the league. Some executives believe the Eagles see this as a short-term, high-upside gamble, a proven veteran who already understands the system, the city, and the expectations. For Slay, the potential reunion carries its own emotional weight. Philadelphia was the stage where he cemented his reputation as one of the league's most respected corners. A return would not just be a football decision, but a symbolic one, reinforcing the notion that certain careers feel incomplete without a final act where they began to matter most. For now, it remains a rumor, but one that feels increasingly plausible. And if it materializes, it could be a homecoming that reshapes both the Eagles' defense and the narrative of a player whose bond with the city never truly faded. That's a wrap from FlyEaglesFly News. If you want the fastest Eagles updates, subscribe, drop a like, and turn on the bell. Sound off in the comments. Let's talk birds.